Alright, so a couple of days ago I got my PC Engine in the mail and I was expecting the TurboGrafx-16 not to show up for like 3 or 4 more weeks. But I was surprised because the next day I got a shipping notice, and the day after that the console actually showed up in the mail. So what we're going to go ahead and do is take a look at this console, compare it to the PC Engine Mini, and I'm going to let you guys know which one I think you should buy. This is Steve from Restalgia, and let's get started. Okay, so before we get started taking a peek at this thing, I do want to say if you guys are interested in modding this console or the PC Engine, be sure to subscribe to the channel. I will be covering that, and as soon as mods are out, I'm going to be one of the first guys putting videos out showing you guys how to do it. So definitely consider subscribing. Now looking at this console, it actually looks really cool. I love the artwork on the box. It really reminds me of the original box and it looks really sharp. It's just nice to have this sort of thing that you can throw up on a shelf. Now looking around the box itself, things are fairly standard. You've got the TurboGrafx-16 artwork along the sides and along the top. Now what I actually found really interesting is that this is ESRB rated, and it's actually rated mature. Now on the box it states that it's rated M because of blood and gore, partial nudity, and violence. Now I don't know if that's just a standard stamp, and maybe not everything applies, but I actually found it quite interesting that they went ahead and rated this thing mature. Now on the back we can actually see that for the TurboGrafx-16 we actually get 25 games instead of 24 like we saw on the PC Engine Mini, and the major difference here is that we got the Splatterhouse English version included with the TurboGrafx-16 games. Now it's important to note that the English version is censored, so you aren't going to be getting the full gory version of the game. And additionally, when we look at the included PC Engine games, we are going to get an extra one called Salamander, but there are 2 games that are not included that were included on the PC Engine Mini. Those 2 games are, and excuse me if I pronounce them incorrectly, are Tokimeki Memorial and Tenge Makyo 2. Both of those games are actually PC Engine CD games. Now let's go ahead and get this thing out of the box. The first thing that we're going to notice is we do get an instruction manual, and yes, this one is in English, not that we're even going to use it. Next in the box is a micro USB cable, and as with the PC Engine, we did not get a power brick, but we also got an HDMI cable included too. Now taking a look at the controller, these are really nice. Now as you can see, they do include the turbo switches, which is fantastic, and I'm really happy that they did that. And I think the reason for the PC Engine Mini not coming with them is because when that console did originally launch, the controllers didn't have any turbo switches. That's not the case with the TurboGrafx, and it's certainly not the case for the core graphics consoles, which is why both of those 2 are going to come with the turbo switches. Just like with the PC Engine Mini, the controller feels amazing. I did mention that the D-pad felt a little bit stiff, but after playing around with it for a little bit, I realized, okay, maybe I was wrong. It does actually feel pretty good. Now we are actually going to compare this controller with the PC Engine Mini controller in a little bit, but we're going to go ahead and take a look at the console first. So we've got the TurboGrafx-16 Mini console here, and I am completely blown away by how big this thing is. This is by far the biggest mini console that we've gotten to date. It is probably 2.5 times the size of a PlayStation Classic, and it is much bigger than the PC Engine as well. In terms of the design, it's actually really nice. It's very true to the original profile of the console. As you can see along the front, we've got our 2 USB ports, and then we've also got a power switch. And again, just like with the PC Engine Mini, when you turn the power switch on, a little lock kind of comes out to prevent the imaginary hue card from coming out of the console. Another really cool feature that they've included here is true to the original. It includes a system backport dust cover, which is actually kind of cool. It makes the system probably 30 or 40% bigger, but at the same time, it's really neat to have this because it's so true to the original console. Removing this cover is actually really simple. There's a little tab on the bottom. Once you pull it up, it actually just slides right off, and then it gives you access to your DC in and your HDMI out. We've got some text on the top indicating that there's an antenna switch, and the channel 3-4 knob would be located on the left-hand side of the original console. It still indicates that that's where they are. Now obviously there isn't actually anything on the side, but I do appreciate how realistic they were trying to make this look. Overall, this console looks absolutely stunning. Now, it is really big, and it did take me by surprise. I was not expecting this thing to be as big as it is. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and set these consoles next to each other so you guys can actually take a peek at them. As you can see, there is a huge size difference between the two consoles. Now, I actually prefer the smaller form factor of the PC Engine, but the TurboGrafx-16 still does look really awesome. And I'm just going to go ahead and give you guys a couple of different angles so you guys can see exactly how they stack up next to one another. Next, we're going to go ahead and take a peek at the actual controllers, and as you guys can see, they are identical in almost every way with the exception of the colors. And then of course we also have the turbo switches, which will be included on the TurboGrafx-16 controllers. Now, I was personally curious to see whether or not they used the exact same board inside of the TurboGrafx-16 Mini as in the PC Engine Mini, which I expect that they would, but when I saw how big this was, I thought there was a possibility that maybe there was slightly different electronics in there, so I went ahead and pulled them apart. And as you guys can see, the motherboards are identical, right on down to the exact same model numbers that are printed right on the circuit board. So this would obviously indicate that there isn't any specific reason in terms of performance that you would pick one over the other. So now that we've gone ahead and taken a peek at everything from the outside and the inside, let's go ahead and get this plugged in and check out the menus. Alright, so just like with the PC Engine Mini, we have the option to choose our language, except the difference here is that it was automatically hovering over the English language. So we're going to go ahead and select that. And obviously when we launch our console, it's going to automatically boot into the TurboGrafx-16 menu. Now you can see down on the bottom, we still have access to our PC Engine, and if we hit that, we're going to turn off our TV and we're going to boot right into the core graphics. Now this is set to the core graphics. If you want the PC Engine, if you guys remember going into the settings, you actually have access to change that in the menu design. So we can jump over to the PC Engine and we can go ahead and confirm that. We'll return to menu, and then we are going to go back to our main menu, and as you can see now we have the PC Engine artwork. Now I actually prefer the core graphics over any of the other ones, but again it depends on what you're going to want to play. You obviously have to be on the TurboGrafx-16 menu in order to play the TurboGrafx-16 games. So to give you guys just a quick overview again, obviously we've got our games and we can kind of navigate through them with no problems. Directly below the title of the game, you can see that we've got our 4 save states, and then it'll indicate how many players the game is. So this is obviously a 1-player game, and as you can see, this would be a 2-player game. We're going to go ahead and jump into the settings really quickly. We've got our user manual, language, display settings. Again, we have access to a 4:3 ratio, a full screen, pixel perfect, widescreen, and then we've got the core graphics screen. I'm not a big fan of this again, but maybe some people do like it. Going back, we've got our wallpaper. Nothing's changed in terms of this. They are the same as what we saw on the PC Engine Mini. And then if we go back to our menu design again, this is where, of course, you could change from core graphics to PC Engine. So we're going to go ahead and go back. Obviously, we still have our credits, and we've also got the option to restore to factory settings. What I'm most curious about is, one, taking a peek at Splatterhouse with the censored version, and then I also want to test out these turbo switches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and jump right on into some Splatterhouse and see if I can see anything notably different about the censored version. And then we're going to try one of the shooter games that are loaded up on here, and there are tons to choose from. So we're going to go ahead and jump into it. Okay guys, so as you can see, when you hit anybody, there isn't any blood or guts that comes out. It's actually fairly mild, so I think that's the big deal here. Now, I personally prefer the uncensored version for obvious reasons, and I think most people would. And taking a look at the total games that you're going to get on here, you actually get less than you would on the PC Engine, which is a little bit unfortunate. I think that they could have included at least the same number of games. If there were certain games they didn't want to include on one or the other, I think that they definitely should have continued to include at least the same number total on each of the consoles. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump out of this thing. So let's go ahead and jump into a shooter game and get these turbo switches tested. So we're gonna jump right on into R-Type. All right guys, so these turbo switches 100% do work, and they function actually quite well, exactly how you would expect them to function if you were to play the original TurboGrafx-16. So it is nice that they did include that, and it does actually make quite a bit of difference when you're playing some of these shooter games, because honestly, some of them I don't even think you could beat without the turbo switches. Now that's a challenge. If you guys think you can, I definitely say go ahead and do it, and then prove me wrong. But there's going to be a bunch of games on here I don't think you guys could beat without the actual turbo switches. I think they are going to be a necessity in order to get through some of these games. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump back over to the menu. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, in terms of the game selection, both of them are quite good. Now, obviously, this is very heavy on the shoot 'em ups. So if you're into shoot 'em ups, you've got a ton of different games to choose from. If you don't, then I mean, there's a ton of other games in here. We've got a couple sports titles. We've got a few good RPG games in here. We've got some beat 'em ups like Splatterhouse and a few other things like that. And there's some platformers as well. So I think it's a very well-rounded system. Now, between TurboGrafx-16, PC Engine Mini, I'm actually going to lean towards the PC Engine Mini. I like the smaller form factor physically. I know for a fact that they're both obviously going to play the same games, and the fact that you actually get more and better games on the PC Engine Mini kind of makes me feel that that's the way that I would go. That being said, obviously people in North America are going to be very fond of the TurboGrafx-16 because that's what you guys grew up with, so it's definitely something to think about. But for me, if you wanted my personal opinion, I would say if you got the opportunity to grab the PC Engine Mini, that's the one that I would go with. But that's pretty much all I've got for you guys. Please consider subscribing to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and let me know in the comment section below, do you prefer TurboGrafx-16 or PC Engine Mini? Thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys again real soon.